okay this morning. I am starting early this morning because I have several shows that I need to get through today. These are going to be several soapbox shorts, so I'm going to do these and I'm going to push these up because they're probably not even going to be 8 minutes apiece. But there are items that I wanted to get to, and because news never stops, it's like the list keeps getting longer and longer and longer, and I'm the only one doing it. So these I'm going to make short. And when I get the opportunity, either tomorrow or tonight, we can go into some longer videos to discuss some of the issues that are brought up. The first issue I want to have a conversation about is Ilhan Omar. I've spoken about Ilhan on more than one occasion, but I just kind of wanted this to be succinct and to the point, with a basic hypothesis or with a basic point. Ilhan Omar is one of the best things to happen to the Democratic Party. I would say Ocasio, I would say Sanders, but I would also say Ilhan in a different capacity. And this capacity is in issues of foreign policy and the things that the United States have been pushing for in other countries around the world. For the longest time, the Democratic Party has taken this notion of identity, and they have used identity in lieu of issues like economics. Essentially, they've been able to separate issues of class and issues of identity as if these things are somehow separate and distinct from one another, creating individuals who, while carrying a particular identity, the experiential reality of that person or who that person is out there representing is of a different class. For example, this was an article that was put up by Lawrence Steiner, but it makes the point. This is the Washington Post. There's a book on Barack Obama called Rising Star. And the book goes into how originally Obama wanted to marry a white woman. But as he got more politically conscious, he realized that it would have been impossible for him to run for president of the United States while also being in a relationship with a white woman. If you don't believe me, think of the issue Kamala Harris is having. Joy-Ann Reid's show comes out saying that Kamala Harris essentially better keep that white man off the campaign trail. What Obama realized was that even though race may have had drawbacks, there are also benefits and positives to race when you're running in a campaign. But those positives can only be expressed if you identify fully, not necessarily with, meaning you can't identify fully if you have a white woman or a white man as your spouse. It's not fair. But if he's making a political point of this, the fact that Joy-Ann Reid brings that up on her show, I would imagine that he's probably, to some degree, has a point. But going beyond him having a point, it's this line. Garrow, who received the Pulitzer Prize for his biography of Martin Luther King Jr., concludes this massive new work with a damning verdict on Obama's determination. While the crucible of self-determination or self-creation had produced an ironclad will, the vessel was hollow to its core. I would put to you that these are the people who, for all intents and purposes, the Democratic Party wants. The Betos of the world. Hollow to their core. Now, here's the catch. The problem with this is you're not going to be able to do this all the time. And the Democratic Party is screaming and praising diversity and praising inclusiveness, using this as a political weapon to go against Donald Trump. Essentially, the president is racist and xenophobic, and so we are going to be the party of inclusiveness. We are going to be the party of diversity. Look at how diverse we are. Missing one very basic point, that in using this as a political weapon, diversity is not just tissue deep. Meaning diversity is not just skin deep. There are cultural differences. Meaning in this country, we have various slivers of what it means to be American. There are 300 or so odd million people in this country. And those various people are going to have various perspectives of America based on cultural differences and based on how they grow and live in America. Meaning somebody having experiences, let's say, of making $100,000 a year in America is going to have different experiences than someone who's on minimum wage or who's in poverty, or for that matter, who's on welfare, or who came across as a refugee. or who has parents who came across as refugees. These are various slices of America. These things go beyond just what the person looks like into the person's ideology. And of course, it's going to go to a certain degree of ideology. It's built upon their own experiences. Now, if the Democratic Party wants to be the party of identity, that's not me saying it, that's them saying it, then they need to back up identity and they need to support it. This is the real politics of identity. Not just having someone of a particular race, but also the various cultures that are coming from those races or from those various experiences in America. If you're going to be the party of identity, then be the party of identity. And leaving one of your own to the wayside is not the way to do it. And just to make a very basic point, Nancy Pelosi and Tom Perez came out with a squeamish comment that didn't even mention Ilhan's name. Pelosi did the same and somewhat looked as a veiled hit on Ilhan. If your party really is going to praise diversity, then that's also going to be diversity of opinion. And diversity of opinion, not in a nonsense way, not because she's being paid by cash, none of that stuff. Her opinion is being born out of the experiences that her parents have had in this country, and maybe relatives that she's had somewhere else that's dealing with America's foreign policy. So that makes her skeptical of America's foreign policy. I would say that's a good thing. I don't like this bipartisan consensus on war. I don't like this bipartisan consensus on Israel in regards to the way we allow the country, with our support, to run roughshod over another group of people. Personally, I think Ilhan is one of the best things that has happened to the Democratic Party. And if this is indeed going to be the party of diversity, if this indeed is going to be, we love inclusiveness, we love diversity, we love, look at all of these beautiful black women of color in our party, then that goes beyond just being skin deep. And that goes into, in many cases, who the people are, what the people represent, and what the people push for in a political context. You've allowed her to be a weak link. It's not because she is. It's because you've allowed her to be that. Not backing her up. Allowed the Republican Party to essentially come up with attacks. And then could also say, well, the Democrats are also against her. You've allowed one of your own to become a weak link. And just to make my point, Donald Trump puts out this disgusting tweet. He's interlacing Ilhan and comments that she made. He takes the comments out of context and splices it with a clip of 9/11. This is disgusting. And even if you're a Trump supporter, can we at the very least acknowledge that this is extraordinarily dangerous from a political violence standpoint and for the potential of political violence. He's not doing this because he cares. He's doing this for political expedience. Even if you're a Trump supporter, I at the very least want you to be honest and acknowledge that's true. Nancy Pelosi, the memory of 9/11 is sacred ground and discussions of it must be done with reverence. The president shouldn't use the painful images of 9/11 with political attack. That's true. She couldn't even mention Ilhan's name. As we visit our troops in Stuttgart to thank them and be briefed by them, we honor our first responsibility as leaders to protect and defend the American people. It's wrong that the president, commander-in-chief, to fan the flames of anyone less safe. That's also true, but she doesn't even mention Ilhan. Let's go to Tom Perez, another person who's supposedly leader of the party. Again, right now can't even mention her name.
He's hoping that for the next 570 days.
The way the president dealt with it, we just debated. What is your take on what she said?
Well, Chris, we have 571 days until the most important election of our lifetime. We have health care on the ballot. We've got good wages on the ballot. We've got our democracy is on the ballot. And what Donald Trump wants to do in the 571 days between now and the election is distract people. He doesn't want to talk about health care because he doesn't have a plan other than to take away people.
That's true. Donald Trump wants to distract people, but in the process of you even saying that he wants to distract people, you're trying to distract people from the question that you were asked. He asked you, what did you think about the comments from Ilhan Omar? I've shown these comments before. She made, I don't think I have it pulled up, but basically Donald Trump pulls her comments out of context. She's having a conversation talking about Islamophobia, and he takes comments about Islamophobia to fan the flames of Islamophobia. My point in this is, even if you're a Trump supporter, this is pretty disgusting of a political thing to do when you know that there could be extraordinary consequences. That's the first point. Meaning death threats have spiked for Ilhan, and they've had to put in new security protocols. But we also need to kind of make this point and nail this home, that if the Democratic Party indeed wants to be the party of identity, then it needs to acknowledge that identity goes beyond just skin deep. And in spite of them being able to separate race and class for the last 40 and 50 years, and being able to put candidates who are just essentially empty vessels representing corporate interests while wearing the identity of a particular race or sex or gender, that's not always going to be true. The real politics of identity is stuff like this, where there are cultural differences, and those cultural differences challenge the hegemonic beliefs of the party itself. And I'd argue it's about time to get challenged. She needs to be defended. And again, she is one of the best things that has happened to this party. Even if you disagree with her, the fact that the conversation can be had is a positive development. I'll leave it here. Thanks so.